Happy Wednesday and happy St. Patrick's Day. Today is going to be the last day of our pre-writing before we start putting all of our sentences together into our final fairy tale writing. So we've already talked about all our characters, we've talked about the problem, we've talked about the setting, we've talked about how the problem is fixed. So now we are going to talk about the conclusion. The conclusion in fairy tales is how our story ends. To conclude something, that word conclude means to end. So our conclusion is the end of our story. So when we think about our conclusion and we try to define how we want to end our story, some things to think about are that fairy tales almost always have happy endings. When you can think about the fairy tales that you have either read or you have watched on TV, they always end happy. So, how are you going to end your story? Does anyone get married? When I think about Cinderella or Frozen or Beauty and the Beast or Snow White, those fairy tales, the prince and the princess get married. Or the prince marries somebody from the town, makes her a princess. Fairy tales like to end in marriage sometimes. Another question is everyone happy again? Is the town saved? Is everyone saved? If something was stolen, is it back and are they happy again? And one last thing that our fairy tales always like to end with is, and they all lived happily ever after. I love when that happens in a fairy tale because everything is happy again. So for your homework tonight, you are going to be looking at your conclusion paper. And it says, write a conclusion sentence. How will your story end? I would like you to have 2 sentences here, 2 or 3. You can always have more as long as they make sense. But the example is, and everyone lived happily ever after. The end. I would like some more detail to that. So, if everyone lived happily ever after, why? What happened? What happened to everybody at the end of the story? So, you want one sentence on how your story ends, what happens at the end of the story, and another sentence that says, and they all lived happily ever after. I'm very excited to start on our final writing tomorrow. Let us know if you have any questions.